Media Utah. This is Talk with John. I am your host, John. Kind of funny how that works. Here, Tuesdays from 4 to 6, typically you can join me on Main Street Media Utah. Now we do Rumble, X, YouTube, as well as our own website, KMMU. We broadcast live on, but also you can go to any one of those four locations. And hopefully someday soon, we're going to be on YouTube. Yeah, hopefully that will happen someday soon too. So we will be broadcasting live today. I'm going to have a guest join me at about 4:19 to 4:21. Someone that's been politically active in Utah for a time and is doing really good work. We look forward to be speaking with him. But let me get this show off to a proper start. Today is, well, and this is kind of like my how I do my radio show, but it's much more obvious when it comes to here on this web platform. Today is Tuesday, May 14th, 2024. It's roughly about 4:08 p.m. When the live recording is happening. So I will be bringing on my guest, and they will be joining me probably in about 12 minutes or so. But first, I just want to touch base with the audience. Audience, we really appreciate you. We appreciate you viewing our shows. We would appreciate the share. And I'm not just talking about Talk with John. I'm talking about all of our shows. We have great hosts. We attempt to put forward great content. And I know that we'll be putting forward much better content here to come. We are starting to figure more and more things out. We'll get this down and we'll be able to promote what we're doing. Also, here soon, I'm going to be changing the background of me behind me. It will be changing, but we're working. I'm working on getting some things shipped to me, and it hasn't happened yet. So we'll be making that happen. Also, we will be accepting call-ins, and the call-in line is 385-899-2134. Also, another way to interact with me is through Twitter at TalkWithJon1. That's TalkWithJon1. We look forward to be having you join us here on Main Street Media Utah, and I look forward to talking with you either online or offline about the different content that I have. And I want to say kudos to everyone that's part of our team on Main Street Media Utah. We look forward to being with you and for a long time to come. And we're trying to be about Main Street, the things that matter to you, the things that matter to, well, there's KSL, there is the Deseret News, there's the Tribune, there's Channel 4, there's Channel 2, and Channel 13. They try to control the narrative. We tell you the things that you want to hear, that you need to hear, and that needs to be brought forward. So we will be doing that. I've got a couple topics that I want to cover before we get to our show, or before we get to our guest. I'll be touching base on a few of these, and then if depending on how long the guest is on with me, we will be getting to some other topics. But first, let's go with a couple topics out of Utah. Something that you may or may not be aware of. Senator Rand Paul endorses Colby Jenkins in a bid to unseat Utah Rep Celeste Moy. This is out of KSL, and I'm trying to see if they attribute it. It was posted on KSL today on May 14th. Senator Ron Paul endorses veteran Colby Jenkins in the race for Utah's 2nd congressional district seat on Tuesday, calling for better Republicans in Washington. Jenkins entered the race against Rep. Celeste Malloy, who is in her first term of Congress after winning a special election last fall with relatively little name recognition, but was endorsed by Senator Mike Lee ahead of the GOP nominating convention last month. The last endorsement helped boost Jenkins to a victory over Malloy at the convention, though Malloy earned enough support from delegates to force a Republican primary on June 25th. So, Paul, a well known Republican from Kentucky, was first elected to the Senate in 2010 amid the Tea Party wave that helped Lee unseat Bob Bennett. The pair have often been aligned on issues of government spending and both opposed to the pandemic relief passed in 2020 and the foreign aid package, Israel and Ukraine packages as well. Also, I hope both of them wind up voting against the FISA bill as well as uh, the bill supporting quote unquote Israel anti-Semitism that is defined and this anti-Semitism that you could have court proceedings taken after you is determined by a non-governmental organization, a third-party governmental organization, not by Congress, with them abdicating and giving up their authority to a third party. So, bottom line is no, I'm not a big fan of anti Semitism, but I am definitely a much bigger unfan of the Congress giving up our our rights for our Second Amendment. And I'm very much against the us giving up our rights on the FISA bill, which every single one of our representatives voted for. Burgess, you let me down. Celeste Malloy, see you later. Gonzo, I think you should be, we would like to see you replaced by somebody else. All right, next topic I want to hit real quick. This is something down in our neck of the woods. Um, Man accused of killing Santaquin's sergeant faces 9 felonies, including a capital offense. A capital murder charge was filed Tuesday against the man accused of killing Santaquin Police Sergeant Bill Hauser, but Utah County Attorney Jeff Gray has not said whether he intends to seek the death penalty if Michael Aaron Jane is convicted. I don't know why he wouldn't. Please do. You absolutely should go after him. Gary's predecessor, David Lee, had previously said that while he was the Utah County attorney, his office would no longer seek the death penalty in any case. Although Gray did not address Tuesday whether he'll seek the death penalty in the Janes case, he said official statement that Mr. Gray does not subscribe to his predecessor's philosophy. If convicted on the aggravated murder charge, the possible penalties include death, life in prison without the possibility of parole, or 25 years to life in prison. My understanding is that that individual, truck driver, um, I want to say, I don't understand police jargon. So I had someone in the sheriff's department share with me that basically he was pulled over. They gave out the call that he was taken off. He turned his truck on the freeway, turned it around, head right back to the police, and then officer down call was given within 16 seconds after the one call saying that he was pulling away. I believe that's how it happened. I'll have to verify that another time. So those are a couple stories that affect the state of Utah directly. Let's go to a couple other things that are in the news. A couple stories. White House admits, this is big. White House admits that Biden-led witch hunt trial against Trump is related to the 2024 elections. White House Press Secretary Jean-Pierre on Tuesday admitted the Biden-led witch hunt against President Trump is related to the 2024 elections. Speaker Mike Johnson appeared at the New York courthouse on Tuesday in support of Trump as Biden's goons used lawfare to interfere in the 2024 elections. AP reporter Madenhigh asked KJP if it was appropriate that Mike Johnson defend Trump from Biden's lawfare. Was it appropriate for Speaker Johnson to show up at the trial of the former president today? A hack reporter for the Associated press asked Karine Jean-Pierre, she admitted that the Biden-led lawfare trial against Trump is related to 2024. So I can't speak to, so she said, let's actually see, well, I can't play this, so I will have to read it. So, look, I can't speak to, I don't want to comment, obviously, as this is related to the 2024 elections, I can't speak to the speaker's schedule. That is something for him to decide on, and let's not forget, this is also connected to an independent judicial process. All right, let's go to another story. And okay, we do not have our guest yet. Vivek Ramaswamy, Rep. Brian Donalds, and Rep. Corey Mills speak outside Manhattan courthouse, slamming crooked judge, the Biden regime, and convicted perjurer Michael Cohen. Those three, the trial against Trump on still undefined criminal charges has gone on now for 4 weeks. This is a definition of electoral interference. Of course, the mainstream legacy media hacks are going along with this and reporting as if this unprecedented attack on Joe Biden's political rival is something quite ordinary in American politics. Yeah, whatever. Mayor Eric Adams proposes hiring illegal immigrants as lifeguards to address New York City shortage because they're excellent swimmers. Can you believe he said that? Mayor Eric Adams has once again initiated controversy with his latest comments of his city lifeguard shortages. The mayor has suggested that illegal immigrants could be the solution to New York City's staffing woes, specifically because they're excellent swimmers, quote unquote. Now, let's hit another one. Florida elementary school principal previously accused of molesting children caught on tape brutally assaulting student after trapping him inside the courtroom. Or no, sorry, not the courtroom, inside the classroom. Also, this is in earlier today. New York Appeals Court upholds merchant's gag order, claims crooked judge properly weighed Trump's First Amendment rights. The question is, can Donald Trump get a fair hearing? I don't know if that's the case. I will mention one last news story, and I will be getting to that. I will be getting to more news stories maybe later today. It might be next time. RFK Jr. surpasses ballot access expectations and is likely to qualify in all 50 states. Just a few headlines we may or may not get to here in upcoming. But right now, I want to introduce, I'm going to call him my friend. I don't know that he wants to be called my friend. If I was him, I definitely wouldn't want to. Bobby Clayson. Bobby Clayson, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, I'm pleased to be on your show, John.
Pleased to have you here. All right. So, Bobby Clayson and I met back in 2022 when he was fighting the good fight for freedom and liberty. And he and I got to know each other a little bit, and at that time, and then have gotten to know each other a lot more. We happen to kind of be in the same area of one another, and we have found that not only we are politically aligned, but we have a lot of the same spiritual thoughts. Let me tell you, folks, this is a man that I trust, and I'm grateful that is willing to be able to come to our show today to talk to us about a couple organizations that he represents. So one of the organizations he represents is Protect Utah Values. And then he also has the Protect Utah Values is also brought together a group of people, and they have another website that is removecox.com. Now, Bobby, here's my question. Have I said anything? Have I given any bad information so far?
So far, you're accurate. We'll see how the rest of the show goes.
Yeah, let's start on a high note. We'll probably finish on a low one. All right, so let instead of me filling in the audience, what you guys have done with both of those organizations. Let's get talking to you. In fact, I am going to reveal this that you and I were both at the Republican convention and chatted a little bit during the Republican convention. Boy, it was a long night. But let's start with Protect Utah Values. What is that organization about? How long has it been around, and what are you guys trying to accomplish with it?
Yeah, so I guess first point of clarification is that the Remove Cox is an initiative of Protect Utah Values. So, in other words, it's not its own organization. It is one of the initiatives that Protect Utah Values is engaged in. So, we actually formed this company, me and a friend, Phil Taylor, who you've had on talking about the Corporate Transparency Act. We started it a couple of years ago with a slightly different purpose than it has now. It's been modified and evolved over time. But the basic gist is this, and that is our mission is to clean up Utah politics by exposing deception, hypocrisy, duplicity, corruption, and drive turnover in our legislature to help drive increased accountability. Right. So the rationale to that is that the state of Utah has, as a lot of people know, a political environment of niceness and complacency. So we re-elect people. We elect incumbents about 85% of the time. Okay. So the reason for that, I think, is because a lot of people just feel like everything is well in Zion and Zion prospereth, so to speak. And what we see is that even if you're a challenger and you're going up against an establishment candidate and your opponent is the incumbent and you don't have the same funding as they do, but you know that your opponent is corrupt, it's very taboo in our politics in the state to run a negative campaign. It's seen as not nice, and it's not good. And that's kind of an issue because there's genuine corruption. And sometimes in order to get people to listen and consider a new candidate, you need to show that the existing one is corrupt, deceptive, duplicitous, and hypocritical. So basically what our PAC does is we go and investigate claims of those things, and then we create public campaigns completely divorced from being in favor of any candidate. So we don't support candidates. Our whole objective is to find that hypocrisy and duplicity and corruption in the state and expose it through public campaigns. And that's what we're doing with Governor Cox right now.
What other initiatives have you guys tried to do in the past and currently as well? I just want to highlight those before we dive down into the one specifically for Spencer Cox.
So this is really the first one that we've engaged like this. We've done campaigns previously where we've attempted to promote a variety of different things, but ultimately we switched gears to deal more with using litigation as a strategy, and that's what Phil is involved with in suing for the unconstitutional measures in the Corporate Transparency Act. So this is really a revival of an organization that's been dead for about 18 months. And its first initiative, because if you went to convention and you listened to Governor Cox's speech, I mean, that was the last straw for a lot of people. And it's time that people understand who he really is. And his Disagree Better initiative is just totally hypocritical.
There's two things with Spencer Cox. So Lowell Nelson, who you're aware of, and probably much of my audience is aware of, said Spencer Cox tries to come across as a nice, and this was Lowell's term, effeminate man. Never harm anyone. Never.
He succeeds on the latter for sure.
Very much so. But also, the mask is torn off with him, as
Yeah.
a number of people have probably seen in the Eric. So first of all, Jason Preston put out his interactions with him
Yeah.
last year at the Republican. Not, it's the off-year convention. I forget the exact technical term, and I'm not pulling that rabbit out of my hat right at the moment. But he had the interaction with him where Spencer Cox literally, he doesn't hit him hard in the chest, but he hits
Yeah.
Jason in the chest with his fists. And you can see Jason, or excuse me, Spencer Cox has a number of people surrounding him. Off camera, what you didn't see is
Mhm.
Spencer Cox also had a number of his bodyguards, which
Yeah.
are highway patrolmen, that had Jason Preston acted in kind. I'll bet you Jason Preston would have been arrested on the spot, if not
For
thrown to the
sure.
ground.
Yeah.
Now, on top of that, Spencer Cox, used some naughty language my mom
Yes.
would have washed my mouth out with. That was not disagreeing better, in my opinion.
No, no.
As
Look,
as
I think back to the days of Governor Herbert, right? Not too long
right,
ago. Not that I really particularly like that guy, but if Governor Herbert would have been asked a question like that about smart cities, he just would have responded with, he either would have ignored the question or he would have said, "Hey, we're trying to solve a housing crisis, and so if you're against it, that's your deal," and then walked away, right? I mean, that would have been the professional disagree better way to handle it. But basically, Spencer got really frustrated because that it goes that Jason calls him out on quite a number of things. Now, of course, he did see that symbolic physical aggression, really, and I say
right.
symbolic, of course, because if you know how Jason Preston is built, you know that Spencer Cox would have hurt himself rather
Yeah.
than actually hurt Jason. But the fact is, he called him a liar. He said that he felt that he was making those claims to get attention, purely to get attention, and that he didn't know what he was talking about with smart cities. When he's been caught straightforwardly talking about smart cities, and there's a government website and stuff like that. So it's that type of deception. He's lying right there. He's being accusatory. He's being physically aggressive, and he's using vulgarity. And meanwhile, on Twitter, he's out there hashtag disagree better. Hey, we need to be more civil and all that kind of stuff. But anybody who knows Governor Cox has had a private or even very public interaction with him knows that he's actually directly opposite that. He can be very threatening, and he can use a lot of aggression and even threats of physical violence, like when he talked about wanting to punch people in the face about mask mandates over on Twitter, right? It's another example. So there's numerous examples of him doing this, and that's just one that was very public and recorded.
And then he's got a wonderful attack dog in Deidre Henderson.
Yeah.
She is the perfect attack dog, in my opinion, for here in the state of Utah. And I'm gonna use Lowell Nelson again on this one. Lowell Nelson put she is the iron fist with a velvet glove over
Velvet glove, yeah.
in a velvet glove. So the bottom line is she attacked the Republican convention and said, "I am surprised with the viciousness and also the vulgarity that my nieces heard at the Republican convention."
Yep.
When I have talked to a number of people, no one saw any interactions with her and her nieces. And the only vulgarity that we heard from the stage
Yep.
was by one of Spencer Cox's supporters up using the BS word. Now,
Yep.
we all know what that means. The bottom line is, here's the problem that I have with Spencer Cox and I have with Deidre Henderson. They are not being transparent, and they are not. So if vulgarity was used, say who did it, say who said
Yep.
it, and if you didn't know their name, come on, we all had name badges on. Almost everybody in that entire room had a name badge. Use their name. Use the first name. Say what county they were from. If they don't know, say they were wearing a name badge, and this is roughly what time and where it took place. So I'm going to say, personally, Deidre Henderson, I don't believe you.
Yeah, and I think that I'm not going to call her a liar because I wasn't there. I wasn't over there. I think I saw her walking through the convention center at one point with her nieces. So I have no idea. But the fact is that whether it happened or it didn't happen, if you're part of a team that says we need to disagree better and condemns vulgarity, and then your supporter gets on stage loudly, so any child in the room, however many there were, can hear that vulgarity, well, you don't get to make that claim. You don't get to make that judgment against people. When Spencer Cox is on Twitter calling a kid who was falsely accused of making a racist remark or using a racist slur at a BYU volleyball game, right? He's completely exonerated, but never mind that. You call him a racist a-hole on Twitter and never apologize even after he's totally exonerated. So it's just nonsense, right? It's just nonsense. I even spoke to someone I know really well, my sister-in-law, recently, and kind of told her about some of these things. And she's like, oh my goodness, he seems so nice. Like, he knows how to put on a nice face. But when he gets on Twitter and says, I don't care why, wear your mask, wear your dang mask. Like, you just can't make that claim that you disagree better when you're the most aggressive and vulgar governor that I've ever heard. I never heard Governor Herbert use curse words. I never heard Huntsman get up there and use curse words. So, I mean, his predecessors were far better than him in that regard, and yet he's the one championing it the most loudly.
Let's get to some of the claims that he made in the in the Republican convention. Now, you had a video that I've actually played on my show a few times. There were a number of comments that he made. One of the comments, so when he started taking credit for all the things that he had done, one of them was to protect women and girls. Well, I was like, protect women and girls? You vetoed a bill that would have protected women and girls and in their private spaces. Now, I don't want to get off in the woods, but the bottom line is that when you are not supporting those things, you're not supporting women and girls. You're not supporting our children. And I know that we use women and girls, but the bottom line is it also affects our boys. And it affects all of us, and it's dishonest. And go ahead.
I think his opposition to that, his veto of that bill that was later pushed through with a supermajority, is part of the issue, like a very clear part of the issue. But even those who don't find a problem with that, maybe agree with that decision to veto, should be aware that publicly he made statements about being concerned about suicide among trans youth, and that we need to allow them to do this, or we might cause suicides. He used a lot of very liberal talking points in public places and in certain environments. And then at a Lincoln Day dinner near Price, he got up on stage. I was there at this event. I've got the video of him describing this. He's saying that the reason he vetoed it was it had problems with indemnification, and we were going to get sued into bankruptcy, and on and on and on. And so whoever he's in front of, he says whatever that they want to hear, which is why we say he's duplicitous. That's the definition of duplicity. You say, I'm opposed to this because I agree with the liberals that this is an issue we need to be concerned. We need to give into the, in my opinion, total self-deception of the trans movement, and affirm their self-deception. In one hand, that's what he says, and in the other, he says, the only reason I didn't like the bill is because we needed to deal with some legal issues where we get sued, and then it'd be totally fine. It's a lie. It's just he's pretending. As I've been saying, he's not a conservative, but he does play one on television.
Also, when he was up there speaking at the mic, one of the things that he said is, "We fought the federal government 60 times
Yeah,
or something, some
yeah,
number along those lines." I'm like,
yeah.
"You didn't fight them on that one, didn't you?"
No,
So,
no. And
so
it wasn't him who fought him; it was the attorney general.
bingo. That's what I. So in that speech, every single thing that he took credit for, I
Yep.
never saw him taking the lead on. He never said to the. So one of the things that he likes to trumpet quite a bit to conservative groups is that he signed the bill into effect for constitutional carry. He never was out front saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
I want the legislature. This is the first bill I want on my desk, and this is the first bill I'm going to sign." He never went out and stood front. He went, let me put my finger in the air and see which way the wind's blowing. I mean, Bill Clinton to it. He is the Republican Bill Clinton. Um,
Yep.
and he put his finger in the air and he said, "Okay, which way is the wind blowing? So now I'm going to take credit for what they did, and I'm going to sign it." I
Yeah.
guarantee you, had there been any pushback, he would not have supported that bill. And when it was vetoed previously, I can't remember if he was the lieutenant governor at the time for Gary Herbert when he did it, but Gary Herbert
Yeah.
vetoed basically that same bill. I didn't hear
Yes.
Spencer Cox stand up and say, "Hey, I think this is something actually we
Yeah.
should support."
Yeah, and you know, and I'll throw him a little bone there. Lieutenant governor usually doesn't speak out against the governor, right? You keep a unified face. But I
Yes.
think what's extremely important detail about that is, yeah, he put his finger in there, but more importantly, it was a veto-proof bill,
Right.
right? So he only would have hurt himself in that case. It's not like we don't know what he would have done if he could have vetoed it. But the fact is, they had the supermajority. Like you said, he didn't lead it. He didn't write it. He didn't publicly come out in favor of it. It came to his desk with a supermajority, and he decided not to give any public protest about it because it was a done deal, and he saw that there was no benefit to resisting it. So it's irrelevant, right? He's claiming something that the legislators did, not him, and he couldn't stop if he wanted to.
So once again, and I'll go back to the statement that I already made. Every single thing that he mentioned in his speech that he took credit for, it was someone else doing.
Yes.
Uh,
Like the fight against ESG, right?
yeah,
He mentioned that up there. No, that was Marlo Oaks.
that was
That as far as anybody can tell, it had nothing to do with him.
okay. So what is your removecox.com? Tell us a little bit
Yep.
about that and what you guys are trying to accomplish with it.
So what we're assembling right now, and you can see the beginnings of this with removecox.com, is all the reasons to not vote for Cox. Again, we're not here to support another candidate, but other candidates are out there across the board in different parties. Our objective is just to show that you should look complacent voters and people who have bought the disagree better nonsense because they listen to the mainstream media too much and they're not paying attention to what's going on behind the scenes, need to look for another candidate, right? That's our objective. Our objective is to convince people, hey, the person you think he is not. And not only that, but he's guilty of some corruption, in my opinion, as well. And so our objective is we are currently raising money. We've raised $50,000 so far. And we will be doing a public campaign, media campaign, to make voters aware so that they can look around and make a better decision that's more in alignment with their values as Utahns and not his values.
Okay, so I'm pulling up the website on my own phone. So what are some of and now let's be clear on this also. One of the things that I'm pulling up and one of the first things that I see is Tucker Carlson called him out on his hypocrisy basically 2 years ago, and Spencer Cox never defended himself on any of that.
Yeah, he did, actually.
Oh, he did? Okay.
He defended himself by calling Tucker Carlson a coward. That was his response.
Okay. All right. Duly noted. Duly noted. Also, another thing that Spencer Cox has not done is basically, I think he's allowed. Uh, Trent Staggs brought this up, is that uh, he met with, I want to say it was like the area manager or someone over the air for ICE. I can't remember if it was the district manager or the area manager for ICE.
Yeah.
And he was going to declare that Utah was a sanctuary state. And Spencer Cox brought that information up. Trent Staggs brought that up in a tweet. And at that point in time, Spencer Cox had not met with this ICE individual, but someone from the governor's office had. Then Spencer Cox winds up meeting with him, and it gets turned around. It gets basically quashed.
Yep.
That is the level of some of the things that Spencer Cox is willing to do. So, do you want to break down a couple of these things that you think we need to get out in front of people and how we can go about doing that, utilizing your resources, but as well, how can my audience help you bring removecox.com out to the public?
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, we've mentioned a lot of things, him taking credit for stuff. We've already mentioned so much. Among the things I think it's really important to know is that one thing that's important to know, if you're a convention goer, if you believe in our caucus convention system, it is very clear that his objective is to destroy the caucus system. Several weeks.
That is something I did not mention, and thank you. We do need to get into that.
This is very important. All right, let me tell you why the caucus convention system is extremely important. It allows us to elect delegates to go to a convention. In that election process, you can get together with your neighbors and elect delegates. It's a very simple process. You can elect people that share your values and your positions. And then those delegates represent basically a few thousand, several thousand representatives that will go to the state convention or the county convention. And in the process, they are able to show up and speak directly one-on-one with all of the candidates. What this allows the state to do is it allows people who don't have a lot of money to run against establishment candidates with deep pockets, because money matters less. So when you look everywhere around this country, our state, everywhere else, money talks, and it talks way, way, way too loud. The idea of a representative government is that we are supposed to be able to have one vote per person. That's the objective. But when you can insert an enormous amount of money and have sway on public opinion, undue sway, then your situation, especially a deceptive sway, then you have a lot of power. You have an enormous amount of power. And the caucus system helps take some of the power of money out by allowing people to run fairly inexpensive campaigns and allow delegates to choose them. We've already weakened that system by creating this signature route, the so-called Count My Vote initiative, where somebody can get signatures and circumvent the caucus convention system and go to general primary regardless of how they do. And that's what we see with Governor Cox here, right? He got 30 some odd % of the vote. He clearly lost to Phil Lyman at convention. And then he got up. I think the most disgusting part of his speech that he gave is that he gloated that the delegates' vote didn't matter, because he said, hey, Governor Herbert and others have been booed here. They've lost by 10 points and then gone on to a general primary, and they win anyway by 30 or 40 points in a general primary. So he gloated that it's a problem. And then several weeks prior, he stated at an event he was at UVU, he was speaking at, that he felt that the caucus convention system was taken over by extremists, and basically called anybody there, that 70 some odd percent, 60 some odd percent, people who voted against him were all extremists and not representative of Utah. So the objective of his speech, the objective of those comments at UVU, the objective of Count My Vote is to destroy this system and reintroduce the power of big money into our politics in the system. And he's going to continue to use that campaign and others to get our caucus convention system destroyed and let big money reign in the state.
So one thing basically at the very beginning, he goes, there's people out there, and he used his hand and pushed out there. It's off screen, but he goes, there's people out there that are saying that because of the extremist views in the convention system, that the convention system he goes, I want to let you know, I want to warn you basically that, and this is where you say the hypocrisy was in, where he said there's people that want to get rid of the convention system, and that is directly pointing to it. And I'll tell you who some of those people are. They're the Millers, they're the Ryan Smiths, they're the big money. Big money wants to control who they want in. I know that there is a huge percentage of the people where I live and the people that I interact with that were not fans of us giving over the state of Utah giving over $1 billion for some sports arenas that may come and may wind up being used somewhere sometime.
Yeah.
Who's that benefiting? Well, I'll tell you directly who it benefits. It benefits the Millers, and it benefits Ryan Smith. They don't have to come up with that money for the infrastructure. They don't, and they get all the benefit of bringing teams in and making billions of dollars and having sports teams that are worth billions of dollars. But the individual citizen, it's not like it's, hey, we're going to repay it to you. We don't want, they're not asking for a loan. No, they want a direct being taken care of. And that
you get a discount on going to a Jazz game because we funded an arena or some hockey or baseball game or whatever stadium that we're building. Do we get discounts and free churros at the game? No.
The direct answer to that is, like you said, no. But there are people. So the big money, the microns, when they come in and get huge incentives to move in the state of Utah, Facebook, huge incentives to move into the state of Utah. NSA gets huge incentives to move into the state of Utah. The little people, the little guy doesn't get those same incentives, doesn't get taken care of like that. In fact, they have to pay for it when they're doing the building. The bottom line is, you want to know who this benefits and who that big money is and who's behind that campaign? It's, like I said, the Ryan Smiths, the Millers, and the like along those lines. So the bottom line is, average guy, you don't get taken care of, and they're not doing anything for you. But Spencer Cox 100%. Is more than happy to get more power. Let's also not forget that Spencer Cox is part of his family is part of Centricom. Is it I want to say it's Centricom.
Fiber optic, right?
Fiber optic company. And they have gotten some very big contracts. Would they have gotten those contracts had it not been for Spencer Cox being the governor? Who knows? Yeah. But we also know that there was a very large sum of money given to Gary Herbert's campaign when he was looking for a lieutenant governor replacement. And Spencer Cox's family made a very large campaign contribution for that. All right.
Interesting.
What else?
Well, I think another big thing that people should remember during COVID is that there was a bill passed to spend a few $100,000 on the governor's security. And the idea was that there weren't line items on that bill that said exactly how the money would be spent because it's a security bill. And the point is to not say, not reveal to people who would want to exploit or harm a public official like the governor information on that security. Okay, but I mean, on its face, it sounds fine, right? But except for the problem was that it was revealed that he used that money to improve his personal property, right? Put a big fence up all around his property down in Richfield, not the governor's mansion, not something that would be inherited or passed on when he was no longer the governor of the state, whether that was 2 years or whether that was 6 years. It went directly to his property and adding a room and security around there. That's something that he'll keep when he's no longer in office, which is inevitable. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a really good example of corruption. Like you've been given the resources that should be passed on. It's a major misuse of public funds. He got quite a bit of backlash from that, deservedly, but in my opinion, not enough. This is not a public slush fund. I would love a big 6 foot tall brick fence or steel fence around my property. But I would never use public money to do that. And that's not something that he should have done either. And his justifications were weak and they were really lame. So
I think one of the things he tried to justify was, it's security for me and my family. Well,
yeah, that's what the governor's mansion's for.
Yeah.
Okay. Security detail makes sense. You have a home with security around it that's given to the governor, right? We're required to pay the president of the United States, security around their personal property that they keep on. That's what the White House is for. That's what the governor's mansion is for. It's supposed to be something that is a wise use of funds that could be passed on and used during their time in office and potentially passed on to the next person, not on your private property because you like to spend weekends there, right? I mean, if you chose to be this office, you have to take everything that goes with it. And that means you got to live in the governor's mansion. If you want to visit your home periodically, that's your business. But we're not required to pay for an increase in your private security because you don't like not spending weekends at your property in Richfield or Fairview. Sorry.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What else? So how can my viewers and listeners support you and support your organization?
Yeah, I mean, it's really simple. We're doing a huge rush for this campaign. Like I said, we've raised $50,000. And we are, if you go to removecox.com and click donate, you can donate to this campaign and help us put up billboards, do some big PR campaigns, and a whole lot of other social media stuff to help make voters who are not paying attention and just feel like everything's okay, aware of what's going on so that we can wake up the people in this state to their awful situation and begin to remove candidates like Spencer Cox.
What I'm gonna ask is there? You said in the campaign, I believe you said at the Republican convention is when you decided I am going to do this. Is that correct?
Correct.
What I'm assuming that you also were having thoughts on doing this before then.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's one of those things that since he was lieutenant governor, you begin to accumulate a rap sheet and look at everything that he said, everything that he says he's for, and all those issues. And from the beginning, I thought if anybody has a shot against him as a challenger, then the state has to hear that he's not acceptable, or they will vote for the incumbent because that's what Utahns do, unfortunately. But that convention speech was like, okay, well, now you've gone a bridge too far. You've really crossed the line. You've showed what disagree better means to you. You've gloated over our system. You've mocked the people that were there. Anybody who watched that speech, I encourage you all to do that, can see the real anger and rage on his face, hidden by a very fake smile, and speech, and realize that this person, he doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about the person that's willing to spend dozens or hundreds of hours over weeks to vet candidates and have decided that he's not worthy to be our governor. So that was the big turning point right there, was looking at this and going, you walked into this convention and you spit in everyone's face. And I'm one of those people that had their face spat in. And so I determined this must be done.
So another thing that I noticed, so where you and I were at a bunch of the evening, we would see candidates come, I was in the back of the room. So I was able to see the candidates walking throughout the room. So the back of the room, around the back of the room, was one of the best places where people could walk to. Almost everybody that went up on the convention stage walked past us, or walked behind me. There were a number of them that there was another section that was about another 30, 40, 50 feet in front of me where people could walk through. I've talked to a number of people that were even close to the stage, and they never saw Spencer Cox come in the room before he hit the stage. They didn't see him anywhere in the room until after his first speech and his second speech. I talked to a number of people. Nobody saw him. He disappeared. We know that he left almost immediately afterwards. The Gateway Pundit actually put up a news article that he had a reporter, and I believe it was a national reporter, detained. Maybe you could say he didn't specifically had, but how about this? People in his entourage and one of his bodyguards physically detained a reporter that wanted to ask him a few questions, had him detained on Spencer Cox's way leaving the building. So the bottom line is he's willing to come in, try to stand up, say, I'm a stand-up guy, and like you said, spit in everybody's face, comes there for just a few minutes, and then goes out the door. That man knew he was going to be booed, and he knew he wasn't appreciated. Now, I admit there were a few people around me that were for Spencer Cox, but the vast majority of that room was totally against him. And I think that, and here's the thing: I'm going to go to the convention system and to the delegate system. As you said, people get to go and spend hours meeting with people. Here in Utah County, I went to 3 meet the delegate situation. You and I went to two of those together. I didn't see Spencer Cox at one of them. Everybody else was there, including John Curtis. So if John Curtis, a congressman that is only here for a short period of time, can make those meetings, I guarantee you Spencer Cox should have been to them. And I'm not aware of a single, now, you may know otherwise, but I'm not aware of a single time that Spencer Cox came to one of those meet the candidate nights in Utah County. I'm not aware of a single time that he came.
I'm not aware of one either. I didn't expect he would be there. I didn't expect Deidre to ever be there either. They definitely weren't, because they know the problem with their position, of course, is it's a lot like Bob Bennett years ago. Like it took some real finagling by some of my friends to get him to debate Mike Lee at UVU. Because they know that if they get in that public scenario, someone's going to say something. Someone's going to say, some reporter, some Jason Preston, somebody's going to walk up with a mic or a camera and say, answer for this. And either they can ignore it or they can answer. People like that prefer to stay on stage in a movie of their own production, right? They prefer to talk to the reporters who they know are going to be favorable. They prefer to avoid the difficult questions. Right now, Spencer Cox or whoever runs his Twitter is blocking anybody who goes and responds to any of his current content promoting his race. with anything that puts him in a bad light. Someone put one of these tweets up there of him calling someone an a-hole, and they got blocked immediately, and that's up and down the way. So this is a campaign of, he's got the media and the money behind him, and he's going to use that to keep the facade, the public facade that he's placed, and he's doing everything he can to not allow that to be penetrated, and that includes things like the convention. He knows he has to show up because it would look really bad, really, really bad if he didn't show up, although I think he still would have looked better not showing up and giving the speech he gave. But at the end of the day, it's all about controlling the environment 100% so that nobody can ask you a question like about smart cities and then have some unhinged person like Spencer go off the cuff and suddenly go in a rage and have that float around social media. So it's in his best interest to control everything, control the messaging at all times.
Okay, so you brought up the media. I think that's probably one of the strongest points.
Yeah.
The media is 100%
Yeah.
in, maybe not 100% in their hearts, but definitely 100% in their minds in supporting Spencer Cox.
Yeah.
Because I think the all of the mainstream media knows that we're not going to get a Democrat governor in the state of Utah, not anytime soon. Maybe in another 4 years, maybe in another 8 years, if they're able to control things and move us closer to being a purple and a blue state. But as the conditions are right now, frankly, I don't think that a Democrat, in fact, I'm convinced of this. Let's say that you could have the vast majority of the media, and the vast majority of the media, the people in the newsrooms and the media here in the state of Utah, are Democrats and are significant Democrats. I've talked with them, and I've talked with a number of people in those newsrooms. Jose Ortiz, I've interviewed on my radio show individually. That man's a Democrat, and he doesn't deny it. The vast majority of them are Democrats, even the ones that supposedly are, on KSL. The vast majority of them. The general manager of KSL is a hardcore Democrat, dare I say, socialist. The bottom line is they know that if there was a Democrat governor in, they could not do as much Democrat pushing narrative and getting as many bills that are what they want to be pushed. The legislature would lock them up and wouldn't let any of those bills in. They are getting what they want much more with a Spencer Cox rhino, and I'm going to say Spencer Cox and Romney are of the same ilk. The only difference between Spencer Cox and Romney is that Spencer Cox has lived here almost his entire life, versus Romney was a carpetbagger, did a great job. I'm gonna say you did a darn good job when you came here and turned around the Olympics in 2002, Romney. But that's the only thing good, in my opinion, you've done for the state of Utah. And Spencer Cox is a much craftier politician, and he is guarded and helped by the media. So I think that was absolutely spot on. Once again, that goes to prove why Bobby's smarter than Talk with John, is because he mentioned the media. I didn't. He beat me. He did. So you did a great job mentioning that. What can we, is there anybody that, are you looking for any type of people with to possibly bring in to help the organization? Meaning, can people send you clips? Can people send you information? Hey, I've had a personal interaction with Spencer Cox. Is there anything that might be able to help with that campaign as well?
100%. Yes. You can come donate. You can also send any information you might have. Might help us further expose Spencer. Every time I talk to somebody, I get a new story. These are being accumulated, and these will be circulated very soon. So if you've got stories, if you've got information via grammar request, if you've got anything that is verifiable, right? That's very important to us. We're not here to rumor mill. We're here to report verifiable things that illustrate his character. So please send those my way. You can send them to bobbyclayson@gmail, and I'll get those.
Okay. I love the rumor mill. I love the rumor. I love to hear the rumor mill on Spencer Cox, and that's one thing that makes you a stand-up guy, Bobby, is because, well, actually, I've heard a lot of things in the rumor mill with Spencer Cox that I have not revealed out to the public because, as you say, it's not verifiable by
Yeah.
multiple sources, or at least a number of multiple sources that I would want to go forward with.
Yeah.
Is there any type of, hey, we could use the help with graphics, or I don't know, something along those lines? Are there certain type
If
of
you
skills
feel
that
like
we
you
could
have a skill that might help get this out there, like let's say you have an audience and you want to, share the stuff that we're putting out with your audience, that would be incredible. We're hiring a professional media team. We're hiring a professional web development team. We've got those basic components in play, but please, by all means, if you feel like you have skill, information, money, connections, whatever that will assist with this, uh, please reach out, and we'll incorporate you any way that we can. We do want to make sure that everything we do with this is 100% professional.
Well, Greg Hughes and KNRS, let's see what we can do to get Bobby Clayson on your radio airwaves to talk about this, because the bottom line, at the very least, I guarantee you it's an interesting subject to your to the audiences that we have here in the state of Utah, and even Tucker Carlson, frankly, probably would be interested in, this is something that would be interested to the United States. Why? Because it's revealing a rhino. It's if we
Yeah.
can take down Spencer Cox, the amount of freedom that we will gain here in the state of Utah, and what the pushback this will do in moving our state from a starting to become purple back to a solid red. This is one of the number one things that I believe you can do, is we can get rid of Spencer Cox. Like you said,
Absolutely. So, and on that note, let me pull in this really important fact. We are pulling in money from organizations even outside of Utah, and the reason that I say that to people is because our governor's race is not just something that affects Utah. What we need to understand is that we have a absolutely unaccountable runaway federal government. It's gotten significantly worse in the last 10 to 20 years. And I won't illustrate that because I think your listeners understand. But the point is this: the next line of defense, the next two lines of defense, as far as I'm concerned, like the presidency is off. The Congress and the Senate, our national legislators, are controlled, completely controlled by big money in every possible way. We have two lines of defense, and one of those is we have a decent Supreme Court, and that decent Supreme Court can be petitioned to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and done successfully, as we're doing with the Corporate Transparency Act. But the next line is federalism. Right? Our Constitution, specifically the 9th and 10th Amendments, as well as many other provisions throughout it, give states certain rights. The federal government is a entity created by the states, not the individual. That's why we call it the federal government. It is a federation of the states. And therefore, states have the right to resist, sue, and even decide to not enforce laws based on their constitutionality and legality. When there's overreach, we have every right to push back against that. And that means it's going to need to be a coalition of states with good governors who are willing to sign the bills that allow states to protect their rights and for self-determination, and to stop that encroachment. So our state, one of the things we want to send is we want to send a message. We want to send a message nationally that it's time to overturn our governors, create an excellent coalition of conservative, Constitution believing governors that are willing to commit state resources, and resist federal overreach and unconstitutional law.
Okay, so I also want to mention, you can be if any callers, any listeners or viewers want to reach out and listen and call in, the phone number is 385-899-2134. 385-899-2134. We're going to have Bobby on for a little bit longer. Okay, so we have here in the state of Utah, and this is my opinion, I'm not asking necessarily Bobby to agree, but here in the state of Utah, we've got some people running for the governor of the state of Utah that Ron DeSantis, in my opinion, has done quite a good job overall for the freedom of his state. We have people running for the office of governor that will make Ron DeSantis almost look like a rhino. Maybe not a rhino, but I mean, definitely even be more constitutionally minded, more freedom minded. I'm going to mention Phil Lyman. We haven't done this. I'm not asking Bobby to mention him because what Bobby is attempting to do is to remove Cox.com. He's attempting to make sure that he's out. But I'm going to say we've got someone that has actually gone to prison standing up for Utah's values, standing up for his neighbors. The federal government went after him because he stood up for his neighbors and said, we're going to stand up for our state and our state's rights. We've got people that are willing to do it. Spencer Cox is not one of those.
Yeah. I think a big part of this, regardless of who you support or don't support for whatever reasons, who are running against Spencer Cox, I think it's, again, really critical that we send a message. And that message is, if you cross a line of corruption in this state, we will remove you no matter what. We're not going to put up with that. And so everyone needs to be put on notice that this state, when it discovers corruption, eliminates it, because that's going to keep the let's say lesser forms of filth in the state more in check, right? It's gonna scare them a little bit and put them back in line, and everyone realizes that there's a very serious line that exists here. We can get better candidates. Like, we have to think of this short term, this election cycle in the next 4 years, but we also have to think about this long term and what type of culture, political culture, do we want to create in the state. We want to create a political culture of accountability, and that starts right now with Spencer Cox.
How would that?
So look, it's really simple. Like, if we run this campaign and he loses, then people understand that there is a lobby, that if you make bad choices, the people in this state will put money together and oust you, right? They see that engine in play. So one of the issues that we have is that certain people don't want to come out against Spencer Cox and other corrupt politicians because they're worried about the blowback. They're worried about the retribution that's going to come their way if they stand up publicly, right? That scares people from doing anything when they should be doing something. Well, the reverse can apply. If you are corrupt in this state, if you're duplicitous, if you're deceptive, if you're hypocritical, if you say one thing and do another completely different thing, depending on who you're talking to and when, then you need to know that if the people in this state get a whiff of that, they're going to come after you, and they're going to create concerted effort. So we can remove people, but if we replace Spencer Cox with somebody else who proved to be corrupt, we'll remove them too. We'll do the same type of campaign against them. We're not any respecter of people. It is simply, are you corrupt? Are you duplicitous? Are you hypocritical?
Well, here's another thing that would happen, in my opinion. We get rid of someone who's corrupt. We get rid of Spencer Cox. It's a big shining beacon. And then also what it says to those that aren't corrupt, hey, I have a chance. There are people that will be willing to stand up for me, and we will get better candidates for Congress. We'll get better candidates for the state House and the state Senate, meaning our state senators, our state representatives. It will be, we can also get someone who will push back against the federal government in there, and we will have better candidates that will come out, because right now there's people that I've talked to that I've asked, can you please run? And they're just like, I don't know that there's, I don't know that there's a desire for my type of
Right.
individual out there.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and the bottom line is, we need here in this state, we need more people that are willing to do it. We've got some really good people that have moved in from the state of California. I'm going to mention Dwayne Benson, one of our our tech guy, our IT guy, is an awesome guy. And
Yep.
one of the things that he's told me privately is, John, I came to the state of Utah thinking I was coming to this awesome red state where there's tons of freedom. And he goes, it's not as free as I thought it was. It's not as red as I thought it was. In fact, there's a fair amount of people that are acting as Democrats. This makes it more likely that individuals will move here and will come out and support people. All right, let me give out those call-in lines one last time. 385-899-2134. That's 385-899-2134. Okay, Bobby, let me ask you this. Is there anything else that you want to mention? I think we've is there anything that I've missed that I have failed to ask you that you would like to talk to our audience about before we let you go?
Yes, I will. I'll reiterate this too, because we do have people. Obviously, we have people giving money. We have people who support Phil Lyman, who want to give to Phil, and of course, I support you giving to whatever candidate that you support, that you believe in. But some of them are a little bit hesitant to give over here, and I don't want to take any money from anybody's campaign. But again, something that has got to be realized here is that because of that complacency and quote unquote niceness, Phil can't say certain things about Spencer Cox that need to be said, right? So if you like a challenger to Spencer Cox, then you need to recognize that there's a whole set of voters in the state that believe the media, believe the public persona, and need to be woken up in order to consider your candidate. That's the fact. And so I would encourage, if you can't give too much, that's fine. Anything helps. Collectively, this is going to help. Recognize that. Recognize that it's a lot easier to get bills passed that are in the legislature if we know that they're not going to get vetoed because we've got a rhino in office. Recognize.
Not only that, we have some candidates that are willing to that are going to be standing up and saying, "Please put these bills on my desk." One thing,
Yes.
to interrupt, but I think this is a great way to point that out. In the convention this year, I don't remember in any past years through our conventions them mentioning overturning I believe it's SB 54, that was the act that did away with the caucus only
Yeah,
path.
count my vote.
Count my vote. So if there were those that were running for Congress, there were those running for Senate that brought it up. So it's not just people running for governor and statewide office. There are those that are saying, "Hey, this is becoming the talking subject." And the other thing is, if I understand correctly, you can only donate so much per quarter to Phil Lyman. If I understand correctly, you can't give an unlimited amount of money, folks. Bobby?
I don't think that's true, actually. Yeah, because it's a
Okay.
state. There's lots of federal laws, but this is state law, and so we're in a situation where you can give whatever. So I don't want I don't want
Okay.
to mislead people here.
Thank
So
you for correcting me on that one.
yeah,
Okay,
no
so
worries.
that goes to show you how John doesn't know everything. Talk with John doesn't know everything. I'm
Well,
willing to admit it.
campaign finance law is some of the most complicated crap ever. So there's there. I'm always checking with our attorney to be like, can we do this? Is this okay? Someone's asking about this. So I'm trying to stay on top of it as much as I can. We want to make sure and cross our T's and dot our I's.
But this is also a way to help your favorite candidate by allowing this group to say things about the about Spencer Cox that no one else
Yeah.
can say. And,
Mhm.
and that is a problem that we have in the state of Utah, is that we have to be nice. We need to get rid of that attitude. We need to stand up and say, we're going to speak factually, we're going to speak honestly, we are going to speak kind, but being nice, that
Mhm.
only gets you more socialism. And
Yeah.
that snake eventually that scorpion will sting you and you will drown.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of people that are worried about being made targets, but you got to realize that freedom has a price, and it's righteousness and courage. You gotta have courage. Okay, you gotta have courage. You gotta be willing to stick your neck out there. Or if I can be so bold, you don't deserve freedom. You don't deserve it. It's actually something that, although it is a God given right, it is also a privilege with which we can lose because we've been insufficiently,
Because we be complacent.
because we got complacent. We
Yeah.
got complacent or we got fearful, right? And there's one thing to understand is that the longer we let this go, the harder it is going to be to dig ourselves out. So every time you don't do something, you're allowing the enemy to stack another regiment against you. One more power, one more dollar, one more industry, one more bureaucracy that's going to be hard to get out of. It's going to crush you. So the time is now. You don't have any time to wait. And there's no excuses. There's no excuses at this point. You got to get out and do something.
So when I started doing a show, when I had Richard Perry, the owner of K Talk, call me up originally to say, "Hey, John, why don't you do a show?" Before I even had Main Street Media reach out to me, I talked to my dad about it, and he said, "John, don't do it." He goes, "Your job is to earn a living for your family and to take care of them." And I said, "Dad, if this country, I can be a pauper. As those that know me know, it's not like I pay the power bills, I pay for food, and I shelter my family, and we get the basics taken care of. We don't have the nice stuff. I give up roughly somewhere in the neighborhood of about 10 hours a week, work week, to doing this show. There are a lot of people that do a lot more. But the bottom line is, the reason why I said I'm going to do this is because when I go to the other side and I meet my heroes, I believe we will have a chance to look at our heroes. We will have a chance to look at George Washington. We'll have a chance to look at some of the others. But some of the people that are not as well known, signers of the Declaration of Independence, there were a number of them that lost their family. They lost their whole fortune. They had children that were, in fact, there were a few of them that were told, your children are on our slave ship. Your children have been captured by us, and they're out in this terrible ship as a prisoner. If you will rescind your statement, we will let them out. They said no. If I'm going to be able to look one of the founders in the eyes, I'm going to look those men in the eyes. I've got to be able to say, I'm willing to put my name on the line. Talk with John. My face and my name are all over. Folks, it bothers me when I hear I'm worried about blowback. There are those that stand up for it. Bobby Clayson, he's got his name there. John Twitchell of Talk with John, he's got his name out there. There are people that are willing to take a stand. I hear all the time, people complaining, why do our representatives not represent us? Why? Because you're not willing to take a stand. Okay, I'm gonna get off my high horse.
Yeah, 100%. That's 100% right. I'll be honest with you too. When you say that bothers you, it bothers me too. The term I hear all the time is how do we avoid getting targeted? How do we avoid being targeted? Right? It doesn't make sense to go and take unnecessary risks or foolish actions. That is true. But man, if our founders were unwilling to take risks, we would not be here. The world would not be in any of the positive things that has come from the American experiment, of which there are many, not just here in this nation, but across the globe. None of those things would have happened if it wasn't for those who were willing to take that risk. So,
Well, the monarchies of the world fell
yes,
because of the American experiment.
yeah,
Now, I believe that we would have had socialism. We would have had, I think we probably would have had Stalin. We would have China. I think we would have something very similar to it. Maybe not exactly it, but it would be very similar to it. And those systems are feudalism. It's a form of feudalism. It's definitely tyranny.
yeah,
If United States falls, then so does the rest of the world. And the bottom line, folks, is I'm sorry, I'm gonna speak a little bit religiously and spiritually. The state of Utah matters more than just about any other state. Yes, we have one of the we don't have the biggest numbers, but per capita, I guarantee you, Satan cares more about the state of Utah and taking it down per populace than any other state in the nation. And I firmly believe it. And that's one way, fighting against Spencer Cox, going and supporting removecox.com. That's one of the ways that you can take care of this. And guess what? I'm not saying anything that I haven't had literally hundreds of people talk to me about. Why are you called? Are you willing to stand up when you're called? Are you willing to be there? This is one way to do it. This is one way. And guess what? Not everyone gets the opportunity to do what Bobby and I are doing. Give 50 or $100. Give something along. Give $20 to take care of freedom and move freedom forward.
yep.
Bob, any last thoughts before we let you go?
I think the only thing that I could possibly say at this point is, if not now, when? And if not you, who? Right? So let's do it.
Yeah. Bottom line is, if it's not done here soon, we're not going to have a chance. It's going to be gone.
Yep.
We don't go much further down the path of socialism and the tyranny that's setting in, because the bottom line is, we know that Spencer Cox would have no problem bringing in another mask mandate, taking kids out of school, and shutting down things so we can't have a proper vote. That's
Yep.
one of the challengers' statements is we need to make sure that we have fair elections, election integrity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think that's one of the funny things that, Deidre has said. It's ridiculous to question it, and why do we need to audit it and all that kind of stuff.
Why do you spend $1 million on billboard campaign?
Yeah, you spent $1 million on a billboard campaign that could have been spent to audit our election system. And look, here's the end. Fact about that is that if the people want to audit our election system and look deeper into it and get information and have a debate, we have the right to do it. And it is not undemocratic to do so. Whatever the results. If the results are, hey, this has all been good, okay, fine. But if we want to do that every 4 years, if we want to have a standing, recurring budget line item that says, here is how the election system will be audited and by whom and where, then we have every right to do that, because it is 100% critical. So it's not wasteful to ask to do that. It's not undemocratic. It's undemocratic to say that you don't have a right to do it. We do have a right to do it. So it's one more reason The lieutenant governor of the state should not be running their own election. That is a conflict of interest. That is nonsense, and that needs to stop.
You're absolutely right. And they tout, Spencer Cox touted, hey, we've got a $29 billion budget. We gave $1 billion back to you. You could have kept a couple of million of those, in my opinion, to make sure that we have fair elections.
Yeah.
I would have been totally fine with that, Spencer Cox. All right. Bobby Clayson, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you give out how people can reach out to you and supporting removing Spencer Cox. I want to just say, also, our call screener says, this is your last chance, 385-899-2134. 385-899-2134 if you have any questions. Bobby, how can people reach out to you?
Yep. So bobbyclayson@gmail.com. That's my email. Please reach out. Send me an email. We'll get in touch. We'll talk. Any conversations that are had are confidential. So if you do have some fear of reprisal or retribution somewhere for something that you might reveal and have legitimate evidence for, just reach out, and that will be 100% confidential. There's obviously some disclosure reporting for anybody who donates that we legally have to comply with, but a conversation is confidential. So let's talk.
Well, that's why you appeared on Talk with John. So I'm going to say, Bobby, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you being there, and really appreciate you joining us today. I'm glad I get to call you my friend. I appreciate everything that you've done. That's removecox.com. So remove, REMOVE, Cox, COX.com. And Bobby Clayson, BOBBYCLAYSON @gmail.com. Folks, I'm also going to ask you, please share this on Twitter, share this around the internet, on the social media interwebs, as it were. This is something that needs to be gotten out. And also, Phil Taylor's show last week. Let's share these shows. Let's get freedom out, and let's let freedom ring. Thank you so much for joining me today, Bobby. Thank you for joining me. Have a great day, and thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right. Take care, my friend. All right, folks. That was Bobby Clayson with removecox.com. I want to say thank you to him for joining me. Appreciate him being here. Okay, so I'm going to do kind of an open line things. Anybody that is out there, you feel free to reach out and talk to me one-on-one, only in front of the whole world, as it were. But you can do that. Let's get to a few stories that I was looking at covering. Let me mention those, and then we'll be wrapping up the show here shortly. Well, maybe not exactly shortly. Merrick Garland and Christopher Wray proudly announced government censorship apparatus to target cyber-enabled campaigns and censor Americans in the run-up to the 2024 election. This is a news article. Attorney General Merrick Garland and Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco and FBI Director Christopher Wray announced on Monday their latest plan to censor Americans under the guise of combating election threats. Now, well, I'll continue with this story. I'll come back to it. Attorney General Merrick Garland, who is directly tied to the historic persecution of the opposition candidate, Donald Trump, led by today in Washington, D.C. on election threats. He should have mentioned his name first when he lectured on current election threats. Yeah, let's not forget the Ashley Biden story that was found to be proven. In fact, the Ashley Biden story where roughly she says, I had uncomfortable showers. I remember uncomfortable, inappropriate showers, I think, with my dad. And also she said she started taking showers late in the evening to avoid having those with her father. She has given given a written statement that that was her diary that was found back in April. She sent that to a judge that was overseeing a case. He should have mentioned the first name. So that's just one of the things. He doesn't mention that. The FBI director doesn't mention that, does he? Merrick Garland today mentioned the DOJ and the FBI work to protect elections from national security threats. It includes our National Security Division and the FBI working to protect our elections from national security threats, including malign foreign influence and cyber-enabled campaigns. Well, what about what Google has done? Google, there was there's testimony that was done up on the Hill several years ago that they had I'm trying to remember the guy's last name. I believe it was Epstein. Now, not the Epstein, but a gentleman by the last name of I want to say he was a professor, and it said he was actually a lifelong Democrat. That said he found information that said that Google pushed votes by the hundreds of thousands, and I believe it was also Facebook pushed hundreds of thousands of votes towards Biden. Representative Dan Bishop, Republican, North Carolina, noted that convenient timing of his announcement by Garland and Wray. Just last week, Biden regime was forced to dissolve and disband the unlawful DHS intelligent experts group stacked with deep state partisans like James Clapper and John Brennan from following a lawsuit by American First Legal and Ambassador Richard Gurnell. It only took them a week to announce their latest efforts to censor and silence Americans. Now, bottom line is, folks, Merrick Garland has never, in my opinion, ever been anyone that I would say I trust with defending the Republic. In another article, in the heart of New York City, the legal landscape was about to witness a seismic clash of ideologies. The trial against former President Donald Trump was underway, but amidst the courtroom drama, a new player emerged. Tennis Evans of Condemned USA is once again rising to the occasion to thwart, obviously, partisan trial efforts. With a fervent belief in justice and democracy, Tennis again appears as a citizen challenging the legitimacy of the trial. Tennis Evans is filing a lawsuit in federal court arguing that the ongoing prosecution or proceedings are a direct affront to federal election laws and the impartiality of the judiciary, furthermore damaging Evans as a voter and his rights to unfettered elections. A summons was swiftly issued by District Attorney Alvin Braggs and the prosecutor leading the New York trial effort, the prosecutor leading the New York effort, and Judge Juan Merchan, the presiding judge for the federal court in Western District of Texas, Mr. Evans saw them as key figures in what everyone knows to be a partisan crusade against Trump and vowed to hold them accountable. Mr. Evans said, "This is more than just a legal skirmish. This is a battle for the soul of American democracy." Having already prevailed in the U.S. Supreme Court, Evans stands emboldened in his quest to halt what he describes as the insanity of partisan actors manipulating the judicial process for their own ends. Folks, I would love to see him be able to sue and go after Judge Merchan and Alvin Braggs. This is the type of thing where I would, this is a case that I'd love to see go to trial. All right. Next article, President Trump speaks to reporters before lawfare show trial. President Trump was back in court on Tuesday as the never-ending Alvin Bragg show trial in New York City prevents him from campaigning across America. The trial against Trump on still undefined criminal charges has gone on now for 4 weeks. This is the definition of election interference. Of course, the Main Street legacy media lackeys are going along with this and reporting as if the unprecedented attacks on Joe Biden's political rival is something quite ordinary in American politics. And folks, this is now me giving commentary uh, on the news. It very well may be. This may be something that we see continuing on. They're going after American citizens, the January Sixers. They're going after them. This is lawfare against the right. President Trump on Tuesday was flanked by North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, Byron Donalds, Corey Mills, and Turncoat Speaker Mike Johnson. This is in the story, folks. I'm reading it. The worthless GOP House leader who sides with Democrats and neglects his voter base on every issue possible. President struck with reporters before his day in court. So the bottom line is they're trying to tie him up, but the polling numbers are showing that President Trump is doing just fine. I think the American people see through this in general, as we saw at the as we saw on the Jersey Shore last weekend. President Trump has over 100,000 people. Maybe because people couldn't get there, it could have been over 200,000 people turned out for his event. How many people will show up for a Joe Biden event? Guarantee you it's not even close. There's a reason why the Democrat Party is talking about and having discussions floated in the media that they are going to discontinue, that they are going to do a virtual Democrat convention as opposed to one in person. And it's not, and what they're saying is they're concerned about having the Palestinian protesters go against them. That's not the issue. They just don't want people to know. They don't want it publicly shown how much people dislike Biden. Folks, they've got to do everything they can to prop him up, and it's not happening. RFK Jr. So here's an article, and RFK Jr. surpasses ballot access expectations and is likely to qualify in all 50 states. According to a report from Politico, Kennedy has already turned more than twice the required number of signatures required to run in Texas and is quickly racking up other key states. Kennedy and his rookie campaign team's ability to reach the requirement is an organizational feat, one they're repeating in the state after state. Kennedy and his running mate, Nicole Shanahan, are now on the ballot in 4 states. They have finished signature gathering in 9 more and are circulating petitions for 29 other states. Campaign hopes to defy the odds and get on the ballot in all 50 states and Washington, D.C., ensuring that his candidacy will affect the November election. In the last 2 or 3 months, this is a statement from him, the last 2 or 3 months, I've been very impressed with Kennedy's operation for being able to smartly maneuver and get on the ballot that were exclusive and difficult, said Michael Arno, whose ballot access firm worked with No Labels. It sounds like they've done very well in both Texas and New York, and that's very impressive and a real feather in their cap. I would say this to our listeners. I have concerns. I have concerns with Donald Trump, but anyone that supports, he is not solid on the Second Amendment, and he supports pro-death. He is for abortion. and I see abortion in general, unless it's with the qualification of the mother's life at jeopardy, as well as in the cases of rape and incest, I see it as flat out murder. Um, and the bottom line is, uh, and I don't necessarily even feel that way necessarily towards the women themselves, but definitely those that are willing to carry out the abortions. They know what they're doing. And so I just can't support RFK. I just can't get there. I do love his stance on being anti-vax and definitely anti-COVID shots. So let's get back to another story. New York appeals court upholds merchant's gag order, claims crooked. So the appeals court said merchant properly weighed Trump's First Amendment rights. We find that Justice Merchants properly weighed petitioner's First Amendment rights against the court's historical commitment to ensuring the fair administration of justice in criminal cases and the right of persons related to uh, other criminal proceedings from being free from threats, intimidation, harassment, harm, according to that order. Let's be clear. The bottom line is Braggs and the state can go out and say whatever they want against Donald Trump, but he can't talk back. No, that's harming their First Amendment rights. I've already talked about another story. Let's get back to this. Actually, I've talked about Mayor Eric Adams. Vivek Ramaswamy is standing up for Donald Trump. I'd be curious to know. I'll look forward to finding out who winds up being Donald Trump's VP. I would love to see him select Vivek Ramaswamy. If he was to select Vivek Ramaswamy, he can say, "Hey, how do you call Donald Trump a racist?" I don't know that you can. I think that would be a very smart move. And not only that, one of the main things that you got to be worried about is with Donald Trump. One of the things that he needs to be worried about is possible assassination attempt or someone trying to kill him that obviously, well, yeah. We've had other presidents that have been killed, like a lone gunman. We had Ronald Reagan shot at. Those were just people with mental conditions, right? I don't buy it. I don't buy it. No one would want to take out Donald Trump if they knew that they were going to get Vivek Ramaswamy. That's your number one insurance policy for staying. They're not going to be able to take him out. Let me get to an article that was sent to me by a listener. This was off of InfoWars. Secretary General of Guatemala suggests Biden administration is trying to shut down child trafficking probe. If this is true, and you can see the clip, if this is true, this is one of the biggest things to hit. Now, I think one of the reasons why Tim Ballard was went after of Underground Railroad. I was at a presentation with Tim Ballard right before it came out, the allegations came out against, and it's like literally right before. I want to say it was the week before he was supposed to go back to Congress and testify. He was going to go back to Congress and testify, but they went after him. The deep state went after him, got these women out. Now, maybe he actually did what they say that he did. I don't know that. I have my questions. I really have my questions, especially one of them who I believe was former law enforcement that said she was harmed. I'm like, come on, you're former law enforcement. You should have been able to, if you didn't want to do it, you shouldn't have done anything. But the bottom line is, he said that he was going to go, that he was asked, I want to say it was by, it might have been Venezuela or Guatemalan president, was going to ask him to come back with her to Washington, D.C. and talk about child trafficking. Well, he didn't wind up going back because of what happened. So the bottom line is, uh, it doesn't surprise me at all in any way, shape, or form if Joe Biden literally was trying to stop this. The Democrat Party, and I believe some Republicans are making tons of money off of child trafficking. Spencer Let, or not Spencer Letts, Michael Letts, who I've had on here with Invest USA, has said he has got information that the cartels are paying Democrats to do things that would not promote bills to stop trafficking, to stop people coming into America. He's reported stories where there's been children that have come across the border multiple times because they were being used in child trafficking. Uh, Border officials, border agents didn't want to allow them to come across because they knew what was going to happen. Well, folks, I am. I think we're going to sign off for today. I want to say thank you for tuning in today, folks. Share this, especially with Bobby Clayson. I'm going to share. I'm going to ask you to share that information with Bobby Clayson. I'm going to ask you to forward this out. Send it out to True Social. Send it out on Twitter. Share it around. We need to remove Spencer Cox, and we need to get rid of that man. So I'm going to say this. I want to say thank you so much for tuning in today. God bless you. May God be with you. Most likely, I'll be back next week. Until then, this is Talk with John and on Main Street Media, Utah. Listen to our fabulous hosts. We bring great guests to you. We bring great subject matter. Maybe not Talk with John, but the rest of them do a fantastic bang-up job. So thank you for being with me here today. God bless. Take care. And do what you can today to keep liberty. Oh, before I go, I'm just going to say, I forgot to do my show opening with the show prayer and the show mantra. I'll make sure to do that next time. Take care.